Hi, pleasant good evening to all. Is everybody hearing me? If you are, you can just message in the chat saying yes, just to make sure that we can hear you. You're hearing me, sorry. Oh, great. Awesome. All right, so it is now 6 minutes past 5 local time, which is Jamaica time. And I know that we have over or close to 300 persons who are in attendance so far. So I think we can really start the proceedings. All right. So subscribers across the region. Oh, let me come on camera just in case. Sorry. Yeah, subscribers across the region, especially those who are in attendance for the first time, agency directors, sales representatives who have been instrumental to many subscribers for the life of their plan. We have members of the Heritage team that are online as well. Invitees by subscribers. I think it's very important to welcome those persons who are not a part of the plan right now, but have been invited by a subscriber and just want to listen and get a better understanding of the plant. And there's no better time than right now. So pleasant good evening to everybody. So to formally start the proceedings as customary, we'll do our introductions. For those who don't know, I'm Richard Gordon. I'm the CEO of Heritage. With me on the panel, I have Ms. Trisha Gay Clark. She is the Chief Plan Administrator. And we also have Ms. Marlene Segree Lyon, who is a Sales Support Manager. Marlene is a bit under the weather, but her dedication to this annual webinar is second to none, and there was no convincing her to really miss it. She wouldn't miss it for the world because it was very important. It's something that we actually look forward to explaining, especially to the persons who are attending their first webinar, EAP webinar. Okay. Hold on 1 second, please.
Afternoon, everybody. In the interim, just wanted to just remind everybody. So we have the question and answer button, which is what we'll use to track your questions and use to answer your questions towards the end of the session. Please do not type any questions in the chat. We cannot respond to the chat. And so we're asking you to use the Q&A. However, we're just going to ask you to allow us to go through the presentation before you start putting the questions in the Q&A, because what happens is we go through the presentation, and by the time we get to the end of the presentation, we have a slew of questions and answers. Many of those would have been asked earlier up. We're not sure if by that time the person would have received the answer satisfactorily. So we're just asking you to just hold on until we're at the end of the presentation to start putting your questions in the chat. That way we'll know that if we are clear that we need to go through it again. So just hang on to your questions, please, and allow us to just go through the presentation, and then we will go through your questions and answers. All right. Thank you so very much. Back over to you, Richard.
Right. Okay. So firstly, just usually like to give a little preamble. Want to say how proud I am and happy to be sharing this moment with many persons, especially those who are part of the journey for the first time. It's been another year, and for those who don't remember, we've actually, we acquired this company in 2022. So this would be our October would make our anniversary for being a part of Heritage, and it's been a whirlwind of a ride, and we're still happy to be here at just this junction, and we're pretty proud of where we have taken the plan to, and we look forward to even greater things in the future. This webinar really aims to remind subscribers about the key details of the plan. We aim to speak about the process and really give a really good understanding in terms of what's next thereafter. So provide some insight as to where the company is going and where we'd like to be in the future. But again, we have several invitees that are a part of this webinar, so I think it's important for them also. As a reminder, this plan has been around for over 42 years, and it has not been an easy ride, especially over the last 3 years. For those persons, I believe, are very much in tune with what is happening across the world. We're faced with many geopolitical issues. We hear about these tariffs and the implications that it will have for global growth. And thankfully, we have been able to navigate those very difficult waters, I believe, over the last, 3 years. Based on the performance of the plan year to date, annualized, it's returning about 5.5%, which is very good, especially I believe for when we compare it to our benchmarks. And we look at it from the fact that it's a very conservative, very, very conservative plan. The aim of this plan was set up so that every person, every subscriber that invests in it, they should be able to get back their money, their entire principal, at the end of 18 years. And again, of course, our aim is to always improve on the returns that we provide to them for the subscribers and their beneficiaries. All right. So again, we're happy to be a part of it. Amidst all the noise and challenges, our commitment remains the same. Our mandate is to ensure that we're positively impacting the lives of people. That's our mandate at the end of the day. So everything we do, and you'll hear me speak about that throughout the presentation. So without further ado, I think we can jump straight into it. So a quick, again, we like to speak about the board of directors because we're very big on governance. Governance is very important for the company. For those who don't know, as a reminder, Heritage is a subsidiary of Proven Group Limited. Proven Group Limited is a company that is actually listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. It's actually the first private equity company to be listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange in 2010. So it's a publicly listed company. You can always go find the financials of the company and you see the performance. And again, so governance is a very big thing for us. This board has 4 persons, led by Garfield Sinclair. He's the chairman, in addition to Johan Heaven and John Reed. Again, all these persons have a vast amount of experience in the financial services industry, over 30 years, 40 years. And they've really done a very good job in spearheading this acquisition and carrying the company to where it is today. All right. So it's just the core management team. So we do have a very full team, but this is just the core persons for this presentation. So you have myself, who I spoke about earlier. I mentioned Trisha again, Marlene, and also have Aisha Barrett, who is the head of asset management. Her role is really to manage the heritage plan. So her team are squarely focused on improving and ensuring that the returns on the heritage plan are the best across the region. We want to ensure that all times we are the best performing education savings plans for our clients. All right. Okay, and this just speaks about the strength about the heritage plan. So again, this plan has been around since 1983. And again, what we have a proud track record that we have inherited and continued is that, since that time, we have successfully returned principal to every single person. Most of the persons, they get back, they choose the EAP option, which is why we're here today. But we can say that we've successfully returned principal 100% of the time to all the subscribers since that point in time. So that's a very good track record. It's a savings plan for those persons who want to save for their child's post-secondary education. And we want to ensure at all times that people can get exactly back, plus more when it's that time, right? So we have a very proud track record that we enjoy since that time. Next slide. Okay, and then the future plans for heritage. So again, despite it being a savings plan, right? At the end of the day, we know that we want to improve the performance and ensure that people can get the type of returns that they require. That is squarely been the focus that we have been on over the last 3 or 4 years. We have analyzed and assessed the historical performance, and we knew that we had to do something different. We had to do something different to ensure that you see and feel the difference when Proven, who is the investment manager for the plan, based on what they are doing. We look at what we did last year. Last year, they did 6.5% net, which is, I think, pretty decent. And also, again, I spoke about it earlier, year to date, when annualized, we're doing 5.5% on the plan. All of these returns on an annual basis feeding to the potential, which goes into how we can estimate and how much EAPs we can pay to the subscribers. So we have to first make sure that the returns on the plan are best in class, best in the market. And once we get that, we have a very good opportunity and a very good possibility of increasing those EAPs on an annual basis. We've spoken about it already, and I'll always use the opportunity to remind subscribers that we are governed by a very strict trust deed and a very strict investment policy. It's very restrictive. It's very conservative because that's why the plan or how the plan was set up. So we have had to navigate that to ensure that we can give you the best risk-adjusted returns, and that will continuously be our focus. Improving efficiencies, again, it's not only about the returns, right? There's more than just the performance. There's about the processes. We want to make sure that every element of the business is operating as efficiently so that it can ultimately go back to the customers, right? Ultimately, we want to make sure that we improve our processes internally so that the customer can have a very good experience. We want to have a very good experience from your onboarding. We want to make sure you have a very good experience when you're getting your maturity payment. Every element of interacting with us, we want to be a stellar. We want to make sure it is top notch. So again, we'll continuously spend money on developing our system. We want it to be first class so that, it makes it so easy for the subscribers. And I think Trisha, in her part aspect of the presentation, will speak more about that process and how easy it is in terms of applying for your EAPs and how quickly you can get those EAPs. And again, ultimately, we want to be the number one ESP provider in the region. That's ultimately what we're aiming for. We have a very strict, a very ambitious investment committee, a very ambitious board of directors, and that is where they want to see the company reach. We want to be the number one in every single thing that we do. All right. So we go back to now the EAP. So again, how the process works is that, education assistant payments, or we call them EAPs, they are approved by the board of directors. We have to assess what the surplus is. We have to look at what the future holds as best as we can to determine what's the best payout ratio so that we can continuously make these payments every single year going forward. Trisha will remind those persons that, you're going to get 3 EAPs once you apply for it. So we want to make sure that we're not just paying you for the first year, but we have enough to pay for the second year and the third year as well. Right? That is what I think is the best thing to do. And that's the most conservative thing that we've tried to do. What you'll see from the graph is that, between 2018 and 2022, the EAP rate has kept relatively, well, the exact same rate at 150 per unit. Based on what we have done with the performance and our outlook and our strategy, we saw it as an opportunity where we could increase the rate, and which will directly impact the subscribers. And you can see from the graph that for 2 consecutive years, we have increased that EAP rate. I saw somebody in the supermarket the other day, and they recognized me from the last presentation, and they were actually very happy and told me that they're actually looking forward to seeing the EAP rate increase again. I mean, that's always the aim. We haven't finalized it yet because we're still waiting on the numbers, but I'm hoping that within the next 2 weeks, we'll be able to send out that information confirming what the EAP rate is, and knock on wood, we will do our best to lobby the board to make sure that they're on board with that. But again, we can't speak to it at this point in time, but what I can show is that over the last 2 years, we have increased the EAP rate, and once we can, we definitely will, because again, our aim is to impact the lives of people as best as we can. All right, so we'll continue, if despite this, we'll continue to manage the plan as conservatively as we can, appropriately, so that we have these monies to pay in the future. All right, so without further ado, I will hand it over to Trisha, and she'll walk you through the entire process on how you apply, etc. All right, have a good evening. Over to you, Trisha.
Thank you, Richard. There is a quick poll, I think, throughout the presentation. You will see some polls just pop up on your screen. We're just asking that you just take about 30 seconds just to answer them quickly. Once you answer, it will disappear. And then we will just continue with the presentation. So just giving you about 30 seconds for everybody to answer, and then we will just proceed. Just a reminder, I'm seeing a few more questions in the Q&A. I promise you that most of the questions will be answered throughout the presentation. So we're just asking you to just hold your questions until we have gone through the presentation. We actually have a Q&A section in the presentation, which is a summary of some of the questions that we would have received at the previous webinars. So just hold your questions for us, please, so that we don't have a Q&A with 100 questions before we finish the presentation, when we will have as many of those questions answered throughout the presentation as best as is possible. All right, so back to the presentation. I think most persons would have answered the poll. So I am here today to really just walk you through your heritage journey, where you are now, what you would have done prior to now, where you are now, what decisions you have to make, How do you apply for your EAPs? What happens in the event that you don't apply for an EAP, whether you missed an EAP, all of those things. So that's what I'm going to walk you through. And then we will go into the Q&As. So just wanted to just remind us of how what the heritage journey looks like. You would have started, some of us many years ago, maybe 18 years ago for some. And we are here 18 years later. Each plan matures at age 18, or the year in which a child turns 18 years. And what happens is you would have received your principal, which is your deposits less the fees at maturity. And most persons would have, or at the point now where their plan would have matured at least last year. Some plans matured 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. But we're here, and it's at this stage where you are going to be benefiting from the scholarship component, from your interest component, plus whatever additional surplus is paid into from the plan. And so this is where you are now. And so we just want to congratulate you on this journey. For getting here, you can jump to slide number 11 for me, please, Deneen. 10, sorry. So we just wanted to say to you, congratulations, you are here. You're at the section where you are now reaping the benefits of your savings for all these years. And so what happens at this stage? You would have elected for those persons whose plans would have matured last year. And we do understand and appreciate that there are some persons who are joining the webinar for the first time, the EAP webinar. You may have also missed the maturity webinar. And so we'll just reiterate what the options were. So you can go back to the previous slide, Deneen. So your option at maturity was to choose whether you wanted the scholarship option or whether you wanted the SDO option, right? Back up to slide 9. Whether you wanted the scholarship option or the SDO option. So the scholarship option is where you would have in the one up the name, please. That's correct, thank you. So the scholarship option, what happened is your plan would have matured, you opted for your principal, which is your contributions less fees. And 1 year post maturity, your child becomes eligible for his or her first scholarship. And that scholarship is paid if the child or the beneficiary, may not be your child, if the beneficiary is enrolled in a tertiary post-secondary institution. So that is paid 1 year after maturity. You have some persons who are now eligible for their second EAP, and that is paid when the child would have completed maturity 2 years ago, and they're now eligible for their second EAP. So they're being enrolled or they're enrolled in a full-time or part-time studies at a post-secondary institution. And then you have those persons who are on the call who are also eligible for their third EAP, which is really 3 years post the plan maturing. And so this child, again, is eligible for his or her final scholarship. So we'll go through all of these in greater details. The scholarships are paid to the beneficiaries, and it was really paid to the beneficiaries to ensure that there are no real tax implications, in those regions where that may be applicable. So paid directly to the school, and they can use it for whatever reason they deem it be, to buy books, for tuition, to help with housing, for tablet computers, whatever it is paid to them, and they can utilize it for whatever the reason they see fit. I know as parents we're saying, but hey, I was the one who paid the money all these years. Why is the scholarship being paid to the student? Not to worry, the student does have the flexibility to say, please pay the scholarship payment to the subscriber. So that's the scholarship option. The other option would have been the self-determined option. And I'm hoping that there is nobody on this webinar who would have elected the self-determined option where the child is actually going to school. The self-determined option was simply a refund of your principal, which is the contributions less fees, plus whatever interest would have been accumulated on the plan at the time of maturity. That would have been the self-determined option. The scholarship option always exceeds the self-determined option because the scholarship option is made up of the interest that would have been earned on the plan plus some. And so you find that once the child is going to university or is enrolled in any post-secondary studies that's approved, then they're eligible for the scholarship payment. Your beneficiary is entitled to receive a maximum of 3 EAPs, right? And that is over the course of the plan. So ideally, the scholarship option is for beneficiaries who are, or will be enrolling in an institution that offers a 3 to 4 year program. And that means that they will get a scholarship in any or in all of the 3 years. So if it's a 4-year program, they will get a scholarship in 3 of the 4 years. If it's a 3-year program, depending on what would have happened prior to them entering university or college, then they would still be eligible for the 3 EAPs, and we'll get into that. So it is 1 EAP per student per year. If you missed an EAP in 1 year, then you cannot combine to say, I want 2 EAPs in 1 year. If you missed an EAP in 1 year, it is still 1 EAP per year. We have put things in place to ensure that if you may have missed a year, you are still eligible to get the last EAP. And that is where, let us say, for example, your child attended or is attending a 3-year program. For example, University of the West Indies, in most instances, or in quite a few instances, it's a 3-year program. And they would have missed 1 year because they turned 18 the same year. Let us say, for example, the same year that they started college. So they got the maturity in the first year. The second year, they would have received their first EAP. The third year, they would have received their second EAP. They are still eligible to get the final EAP by simply providing proof that they would have graduated. In the subsequent year, they would have graduated from their course of study and they would have still been eligible for the third EAP. All right. So you do have situations like that where things are put in place to ensure that you are still eligible or you're still able to get the 3 EAPs. EAPs are paid annually, and your child must be enrolled in a recognized post-secondary institution. Now, we get the question a lot, what is approved? What happens is you can simply Google approved tertiary institutions in each of the jurisdictions. You'll see it in US, you'll see it in Bahamas, you can Google it for Jamaica, and it will give you a list of all of the recognized post-secondary institutions. So that is something that you can Google. So the child must be enrolled, and when you are applying for your EAP, we're going to go through that in a little bit. You must show proof that the child is enrolled. Notice we say enrolled, not just registered, not just accepted, sorry. You can be accepted and you choose not to go, but what we need is proof that the child is actually enrolled in a post-secondary institution. EAPs are actually comprised of the interest that would have been earned on your payment, whatever it is that you would have put in over the years, plus there's a discretionary top-up amount, which is approved by the foundation on an annual basis. And that is what really bumps the interest up, bumps the EAP rate up, so you get something that is meaningful. And so that is how the EAP rate is calculated. The EAP that is paid is based on the number of units that is held in the plan. So you will look at how many units you have, and you will multiply the number of units by whatever the declared EAP rate for the year is. Last year, the rate was 160. The year before, it was 155. So last year, if you had 10 units, you would have multiplied 10 by the 160, which would have given you $1,600 in EAP for last year. This year, once the rate is declared, it will be that rate times the number of units, whether it's 160 again or 165 or 170, whatever it is, times the number of units. And that will tell you what the EAP is for this year. So it's not one rate necessarily that will carry you through for each of the 3 years. Every year we have to declare what the EAP rate is for that year. All right. Next slide for me, please. All right. So before we get into the proof of registration and just general information, the process of EAP, sometimes it can be a little bit convoluted, complicated for some persons to understand. And then we have a varying number of scenarios. You have scenarios where you would have a child that would have completed, for example, in Jamaica, two levels of CAPE. So sixth form, you have CAPE A and CAPE B. The completion of 2 years of CAPE would really be their first year post-secondary studies. So that would count as their first year post-secondary studies. So you do have instances where persons or a plan would have matured and a child has completed 2 years of CAPE. At maturity, you may find that having completed the 2 years of CAPE at age 18, you can have the plan mature and actually apply for your first year of EAP at that time. But there are very specific circumstances under which you can apply for your first year of scholarship in the event that your child would have completed 1 full year of post-secondary studies. So either 1 full year of college, or in this instance, for example, in Jamaica, whichever other country uses CAPE, 2 years of CAPE. All right. So what happens is when you're applying for your EAP, you are required to complete a proof of registration, and that is simply something that tells us or confirms that the child is registered. The proof of registration form has specific information on it. It asks what is the course of study, the length, the name of the school is there. It has the beneficiary's name, it has the beneficiary's signature, the agreement number, all of that, student ID. And this is simply something that we ask that the school would complete, where the school indicates the course of study and all of the other pertinent information. It must be signed by the institution and stamped and dated. Please note that the proof of registration must be stamped and signed by the institution, and it must be dated. So we do not expect to receive any proof of registration that is dated 2024 when you're applying for an EAP in 2025 fall. You must be registered for fall 2025 to apply for any EAP in this season, or you would have completed your year of study, would have graduated, and you are using your completion, your diploma or your degree, whatever it is, as your proof to get your final EAP. So those are the 2 instances. You must be registered for fall 2025 to be eligible to apply for a scholarship in this year, 2025-2026, or you must have completed your course of study and you would have received your diploma or your degree or your master's, whatever it is, and you're using that to claim your final EAP. Now, we have persons who would have indicated the POR, sometimes the school doesn't want to sign the form. I'm having difficulty getting the form back. So we have other alternative methods of proofing or confirming that you're actually registered. And you can go to the next slide, Deneen. And this is actually the screenshot. So if your child is registered, or if the child is registered, he or she is able to log on to the students portal, which we know I think most institutions actually do have that now. Log on to the school's portal. They need to provide us with a screenshot that shows the URL that it must be visible. URL of the online dashboard. It should hold the name of the school, college, university, whatever the program is. If there's a logo, the logo needs to be visible. Should ensure that it has the name of the student visible, the course of study. It must indicate that the student is registered for fall. We do not accept acceptance letters as proof of registration, because as I said, you can be accepted to many institutions and may be going to none. So acceptance letters are not accepted. What we do accept is a screenshot of the online portal. We do accept the POR, which I mentioned on the previous slide, or a statement of account from the school. And of course, the statement of account needs to bear the required markings to say it is something that is a legitimate document. The statement of account that shows the payment made or the amount due for fall 2025. Ensure that it has the student's name of it and it has the name of the institution to which the child is registered. All right, so those are the three methods of registration. Acceptance letters, you can be accepted to 10 universities and you decide to go to none. So acceptance letters are not utilized as proof of registration. Please remember to use the Q&A to ask your questions. Questions asked in the chat cannot be answered by the panelists. So please just remember to ask your questions in the Q&A. All right. So the application process is based on the prospectus. The EAPs are really due in September. However, we know that school starts in August. So we have to declare the rate of the EAP. Once we get to the end of July, we use the balances at the end of July to determine the accrued interest, to determine the value of the surplus, to be able to declare the EAP rate. And so once the online portal is open, you will be notified. You will get an email or two telling you that the online portal is actually open, and you may actually log onto the dashboard and do the application. We're not going to be accepting any manual applications this year because it makes the process that much more tedious and very, it's administratively difficult to manage. And so we're just asking you would have done the same thing for the maturity process. For the EAP process, simply go online and you will be allowed to submit your applications online. So you log onto your dashboard, select the EAP tile, and then this is what pops up. Most of it is pre-filled. It has the subscriber information. Remember, the plan is still linked under the subscriber. You have the subscriber information, and then it asks for the beneficiary email. If it's not pre-populated, it means we don't actually have it on file. So we're just asking you to put in the beneficiary's email. Once you put that in, just double check to ensure that the address is correct. If you are changing your address, then you may be asked to upload a proof of address. Please, subscribers, please ensure if you're uploading a proof of address, you do not upload any document that is greater than 3 months old. Last year, we had a slew of documents that were older than 3 months old. We had a slew of persons who uploaded copies of IDs which had expired. And those things make the process that much longer. It means every time we get an invalid POA or an invalid ID, we are going to have to stop. We're going to have to make a note of that application. We're going to have to contact the subscriber. Sometimes you call, no answer. You send an email, no answer. And then you have to go back now and revert to it because, sometimes the subscriber is not seeing the email. You're trying to really clear all of the backlog that you have. So it does lengthen the process a lot. So we're asking you to ensure portal are actually valid documents, POAs no greater than 3 months old, and valid IDs. Once you ensure the subscriber information is in and the beneficiary email, you select next, it will take you to the payment details. Okay, so here it asks you whether you want your payment to be made by check or whether you want your payment to be made by EFT. It also asks for a copy of the person who is completing the online application, whether it is the beneficiary or whether it is a subscriber. I want to just pause here for a little minute. There's another poll that is up on screen. So I'll just give you 30 seconds to just read and answer. For persons who are not seeing the Q&A is at the bottom of the screen. Once you hover to the bottom of the screen, if you're using a desktop computer, then you'll see the Q&A pop up. If you're seeing the chat, the Q&A should be maybe about 2 to 3 icons to the left, I think, of the Q&A, of the chat, or to the right of the chat, sorry. So it's a chat, raise hand, and then you should see Q&A. All right. So for payments, you have the option to get your payment by check or by wire transfer. Checks are only negotiable in Bahamas, Bermuda, BVI, or Jamaica. Checks are only negotiable in Bahamas, Bermuda, BVI, or Jamaica. If you are not physically in any of those locations, or if you are unable to go to any of these locations, do not select payment by check. We will only deliver the checks to your agency. So the checks will be prepared in Jamaica, sent to Bahamas, sent to Bermuda, sent to the BVI, or you may pick them up from the office here in Jamaica. We had many persons who would have elected a check payment last year, and we had to cancel the checks and we had to redo either the check to somebody else or we actually had to do a wire. If it is that you elect a check payment and you ask us to cancel the check where it has to be canceled because of no fault of ours, where we didn't spell your name incorrectly or anything, you are going to be charged for the check to be redone or for the cost of the check. All right. Please note, you can request a wire payment. And so once you elect on this screen whether you want your payment by check or your payment by wire, then the banking details section will be applicable to you. So you elect your option here, then it takes you to the next. Upload the ID. Please look at the formats that are allowable in terms of the ID, and then you input your banking information. If you elect a payment by wire, then here it asks you for the name of the bank. All sections that have an asterisk means that they are mandatory fields. It asks you for the name of the bank. It also has pre-populated the beneficiary's name as well as the subscriber's name. Indicate who the payment should be made to. If it is just to the subscriber, if the beneficiary's name is not on the account, please remove the subscriber, the beneficiary's name. If it's only the beneficiary's name that is on the account, then you put that information in the top line only. Remove it from the third line. And then you put in the account number. If it is that you have specifically, we have Bank of Nova Scotia accounts, or you have any RBC Bahamas or any Bahamas at all, any account in the Bahamas, then you must indicate your branch code. If your bank has a branch and it has a branch code, then please indicate your branch code. All right. Ask you for your account type. The account currency is also important. Last year, even up to this year, we had many failed transactions because the account was a J dollar account and the persons would have said that it's a US dollar account or vice versa. So we ask that you just be very careful when you are selecting the currency, ensure that the currency matches the actual currency of the account. Also ask you for the bank's address and then your address, which should coincide with what the bank has, is pre-populated here. All right. So what I want us to just remember here for the banking details, please just confirm who the name of the account is, whose account it is, by ensuring that the account holders' names are correct. If it's just one account, then you just have that person's name in the top line. It must either be the name of one subscriber, both subscribers, or the beneficiary. A third party who is not on the plan at all, you cannot input the name here. If you do that and we log on and when we're approving the application, we see that that is the case, then we're going to have to put your payment on pause because we cannot pay to anybody who is not on the plan. So if you're not a subscriber, then the payment won't be made to you. The payment is either made to the beneficiary or it's made to the subscribers. Okay. Then there's a declaration that asks us to confirm that the student has authorized the payment to be made based on the instructions that have been provided. You won't be allowed to move on unless you would have checked that box. All right. You can go to the next tab for me. And then it asks you simply for the education details. So here is where you would upload a copy of the proof of address that you have, whether it is the proof of address form or whether it is the screenshot of the URL or whether it is the copy of the statement of account that is uploaded here. So it just asks you to just input the name of the institution, first enrolled, program length, and then the proof of registration, which must be uploaded for the application to be submitted. Once you have uploaded those documents, you go to submission, you go next, and then you submit the document. All right. And it's just asking you to just confirm that what we have received, we are allowed to use, and we are relying on the information that you would have provided. Okay. All right. So check. So this is just some very pertinent information that we just want to ensure that you are familiar with. Checks, again, will only be distributed to the 4 jurisdictions within which the plan is sold. That's Jamaica, Bermuda, Bahamas, BVI. Checks cannot be redistributed or distributed to any region outside of the region. 1 second for me. All right. If you need a wire payment, it can be facilitated, of course, at your request. If it is that you are in Jamaica, payments that are being made to a BNS account will attract no wire charges because it's coming from a BNS account. So if you have a BNS USD or a BNS JMD, there is no cost to do that transfer to you. So again, for Jamaica, if the payment is being made to a BNS account or it is being made to a USD, BNS J dollar or USD account, then there are no wire charges. If the payment is being made to any other account, then there is a wire charge. For payments that are being made to the Bermuda account, you can go back one for me, please. Payments that are being made to a Bermuda account, it's coming from a Bermuda account, and so the charge, I think, is very minimal. I think it's probably 50 cents. Similar thing for the Bahamas and for BVI. If you are, however, requesting a wire payment to any bank that is not within these jurisdictions, or if it's not a BNS account, you will be charged the wire fee. If it is being wired to a Bank of America or an Australian bank, wherever it is being wired, you'll be charged the wire fee. If you are requesting a payment to a bank account that is not in a US dollar or is not US dollar denominated, the charge or the amount will actually be converted at whatever the bank's rate is. We're sending US dollars because it's a US dollar denominated plan. And so whatever the rate is that it is being converted at, if it's a Euro account, if it's a Canadian account, if it's a Australian account, it will be converted at whatever the bank converts it, the receiving bank converts it at. All right. So we will be actually initiating payment. So would have mentioned a few slides back, the portal will be opened by the 22nd of August. Notice you have said by. It may be opened before that. As soon as it's open, you will be notified. We'll be initiating payment during the first week of September. And subscribers are at this time, you're asked to get your proof of registration in order. So you can go on the website, you can download the website from the website, the proof of registration form, and you can have that completed and submitted. If it is that the school sends it directly to us, we're going to forward it to you because you still need to upload it to your application. So in some instances, schools would have copy on the email when they're sending it directly to us here. If you're not copied, we will send you the document so that you can include it in your application. Remember, you cannot complete the application without uploading a proof of address. They have a poll that's actually online, so I'll ask you to just complete that now.
You just said proof of address, Trisha. I think you meant proof of registration.
Thank you, Marlene. Proof of registration. Sorry about that. All right. Okay. So, reminder, again, EAPs are paid directly to the beneficiary unless the beneficiary has agreed to have it paid to one or both of the subscribers. Okay. All right, next slide. All right. So we just wanted to remind you here that the EAP application season for 2025, because it's for fall 2025 and it closes 2026. So the EAP season, it will remain open until the 31st of January, 2026. Applications not received by this date will be deferred or forfeited as the case may be. And once you have missed or once we have communicated to you that the season is closed, and if it is that we have any little wiggle room or any little, waiver period, once it is closed, you have to wait until August 2026 when that EAP season opens to do the application for that EAP season. So just want to encourage you, you have from now until the end of January to do the EAP applications. Please, we're encouraging you to just get your proof of registrations ready. So as soon as we tell you that the portal is open, you can go on and you can do the applications. This year, even after we would have closed the application season, we were still getting quite a few applications, and we actually had to be turning persons down to say no. Having already extended, we had to turn persons down to say we had to cut off, apply in 2025. Know that you're applying in 2025. Remember, your proof of registration must be for fall 2025, not summer 2025, not spring 2025. It must be for fall. So the beneficiary must be registered for school in August and later on. Okay, that I think is a critical thing for us to note. So here we have some questions. So what if your child, one, takes a gap year or needs to take a break, because you have some students who would have graduated from high school and say, you know what, I'm just going to take a break, not going to school. So what if they decide that they want to take a break, and what if they decide that they are not going to school after taking a break? Because we do have those instances. So the first EAP, so I just want us to pay very close attention here. The first EAP can be deferred for 2 years. After 2 postponements, if it is not claimed, the first EAP will be forfeited. All right? So if your child, if the plan matured 2023, and let us say he or she didn't go to school in 2024, it would have been, you can defer for 2024, and let us say we're at 2025 now, and he or she is no longer, still not enrolled in an institution, you can defer again for 2025. If at the end of the 2026 season, the child has not applied for that first EAP, it will be forfeited. So the first EAP can be deferred for 2 years, and if it is not applied for after the end of the 2 years, that EAP postponed for 2 years. The 3rd year comes around, if you don't apply, it's forfeited. After EAP 1 is paid out, the beneficiary can defer EAP 2 for 1 year or EAP 3 for 1 year. So let us say your child actually started to go to school, took the first EAP, and then something happened, whether it's a medical emergency or whatever it is, the child had to take a break. The second EAP can be deferred for a year. After that year, it must be applied for. If the 3rd year comes around and the second EAP still hasn't been applied for, then that EAP now becomes forfeited. And so then they would only be able to get the 3rd EAP. And so those are the things that we just have to bear in mind, that you can defer the first EAP for 2 years, and then the other 2 payments can be deferred for 1 year each. Point to note, if no EAPs have been paid out, so if it is that you have, your plan has matured, your child had all intentions of going to school, you selected the EAP option, they took a gap year, they postponed it for 1 year, and what we find is that, you know what, you realize that, okay, this child is not going to go to school, then what's going to happen is that if no EAPs have been paid out or forfeited, and your child decides not to go to school, you actually can substitute another child to receive the EAPs. I'm going to repeat. If your child decides not to go to school and none of the EAPs have been paid, so you have not received EAP 1, 2, or 3, or they have not been forfeited, which means that you would have realized that the child wasn't going to school before the end of the first EAP being forfeited. So after 2 years, you realize, okay, this child isn't going to school. You said, no, what, let me substitute another beneficiary to receive the EAPs. And what happens is that whoever it is that you're nominating to receive the EAP must also be under 22 years old. So under 22 years old for the beneficiary who is being substituted, and under 22 years old for the beneficiary who is to be substituted. Okay? So we have some additional questions here that I know are, would have been asked before. What happens after you have completed the form? Do you wait until the portal is open and you upload the forms? Yes. So if you have the form, if you have the EAP, if you have the proof of registration, if you have your screenshot of your URL, if you have your screenshot of the statement of account, whatever it is, you just hang on to it. And then once the portal is open, then you would just log on to the portal and do the application. If you do not yet have access to the portal, please reach out to us and let us help you to get access. It's a very easy portal to use. We would have used it for the maturity. We're using it for the scholarship applications. And I mean, things are really going in line with just being digital, and we're just trying to ensure that we're trying to make this, we're making the process as easy or as efficient as is possible. So when you go on and you do your applications, we don't have to be transcribing bank account information from your form, your physical form, to type it in. We simply pull what you would have entered. In each year, yes. So you do an application for EAP 1. When it comes around, you do an application for EAP 2. And when the next year comes around, you do an application for EAP 3. So you have to do an application in each year. If it is that you are opting to defer your EAP, please contact us, send us a note. Please note that my child is not going to be going to school. I would like to defer my EAP so we can actually note it on file. What if the student starts university in January 26? When do you apply? You apply in January 26. You will have your proof of registration for January 26. And you just remember the portal stays open until the 31st of January 2026. And so you'd have had the opportunity to get the POR and do the application. All right. For the application for each year, it is the same application form. I think what we changed on the proof of registration, sorry. I think there is a form, it actually just asks you to check the date. So you do one application, one proof of registration from the school. You would have that proof of registration for fall 2025. Next year, you would ask the school to complete the POR again for 2026. They would stamp it, they would date it. And then when 2027 comes around, you ask them to complete the proof of registration for 2027. They will sign it and they will date it. Many of the schools are familiar with the process. Certainly, UE, UTech is familiar. We get a lot of PORs stamped and signed by Marsha from UE. You know the name, you know the signature. And so they're very accustomed to getting the forms for completion. If your child went to trade school, would he get an EAP? Yes. So as long as the child is duly registered in a post-secondary institution, once it's authorized, once you Google and say, okay, it's a formal institution, he or she is eligible for the EAP. My child's plan matured this year meaning 2025, and he has already completed his first year of university. Would he be eligible to receive his EAP this year? I have a he, her, his EAP this year. So the answer to that is yes, because we do understand that in some instances, children are more advanced. And so if your child turned 18 this year, the plan matured this year, you have already applied for your maturity, or you are applying for your maturity. Once the maturity application has gone through and the approval has gone through, then you can actually apply for the EAP. You will be advancing the EAP to this year. So the only instance and the maturity is paid in the same year is where the child would have already completed 1 full year of post-secondary studies. This says university, but it would be university or would have completed the 2 years of CAPE, because the 2 years of CAPE is really considered as 1 year of post-secondary studies. Or I think we have a course called IB, that's what's it called again, Morgan? IB.
Yes, the IB program, yes.
The IB program, or you have A levels. So once it is that we would have confirmed that the child duly completed those programs, then you would apply for your maturity benefit. Once the maturity benefit is approved, then you can apply for the advancement of the EAP to this year. All right. When is the latest date to apply for the 2025-2026 school year? And that would be the 31st of January, 2026. if your child opts not to go to college after the scholarship option is selected, EAPs can be transferred to another child. Is there a time limit to do that transfer or restrictions as to who it can be transferred to? So remember, we said that the EAP can be transferred, substituted to another beneficiary if and only if no EAPs were distributed, no EAPs were forfeited, and both your child and the child to whom the EAP is to be transferred to, both of them are under the age of 22. All right. In terms of the proof that you would have graduated, we need a copy of your diploma, or some formal document from the institution confirming with the signature that you would have completed your course of study and you have graduated with a specific degree or diploma. All right. Is there anything that I would have missed that you want to clarify, Marlene, before we jump into the Q&As?
Just to add to your last statement as it relates to providing your diploma as proof, if that course of study for that diploma was a 2-year course and the beneficiary graduates with that diploma for a 2-year program, then we would not be able to pay 3 EAPs for that 2-year program. So your program length would have to be a minimum 3 years to receive the full benefits of all 3 EAPs. But other than that, I don't have any other comment. Everything was pretty clear, yes.
All right. All right, so thanks, Marlene. So we're going to just jump into the question and answers to see if it is that there are any questions and answers that would not have been answered in our presentation, and see how many of them we can get through as quickly as is possible. So, is the EAP a percentage of the tuition fee? It would work out to be a percentage, but the EAP is actually calculated by using the number of units that you have. So whatever your plan is, number of units by whatever the declared EAP rate is. Last year's EAP rate per unit was 160. The year before it was 155. We haven't yet declared the rate for this year. So once we have declared it, once we have opened the the portal, you will be notified. So the EAP that you will get each year will be determined by the declared EAP rate for that year. And so that will be communicated. It's the number of units times the EAP rate. Last year it was 160, so it would be 160 times 10 if you had 10 units, which is $1,600, which would be paid in that year specifically. Every year, the EAP rate may differ. The section, it is recorded. We will send out the recording hopefully by next week once we go through and clean it up. We have a plan that matured last year, and my child only has 1 year left in university. Wow, okay. Okay. So he would be able to, wow. So I know he would definitely be able to get two EAPs for sure. Molly, you can help me with this one. Because ideally, if the plan matured last year, you could have advanced and gotten the first EAP last year, in the year that the plan matures. So you'll be eligible for the EAP this year, and then you will be eligible for another EAP when using the certificate to show that the child would have completed school. Does that mean, Marlene, remind me, what would happen to the third EAP?
So if the customer can prove that the child completed a program of study that is at least 3 years, they would be eligible for all 3 EAPs, albeit 1 in each year, even after the child has finished school. Mind you, if that child is moving on to a graduate program, they can always apply for an EAP providing their proof of enrollment into a master's program or whatever graduate program that they may be pursuing. But if they completed a degree, didn't apply for the EAPs, they may be able to get all three. Trisha, we'd have to look at when the
The
plan
situation,
mature.
yeah.
Was there a forfeiture? What would have caused that EAP not to be applied for? So we'd have to look at all the different scenarios to determine whether or not they could actually maximize all three. But if that's your case, we recommend that you contact us with the full details and we will guide you accordingly as to how best to access those EAPs.
Awesome. Thanks, Maureen. Does the beneficiary to whom you wish to transfer have to be your personal child? No, he or she does not. Remember, you also can take out the plan for a child that's not yours. And so it's the same criteria. As long as the beneficiary to whom it is to be transferred is also under the age of 22 and will be enrolled in post-secondary studies. If your child does not go to college and you would have elected the EAP option, then you would have forfeited the EAPs if it is that you have nobody to transfer the EAPs to. The purpose of electing at maturity what you want is where you determine, okay, if my child is going to school, let me sign up so I can get the scholarship. If the child is not going to go to school, then you would have selected the self-determined option, which would have given you whatever interest would have been accrued on your funds. All right. What was the discretionary amount added to the EAP last year? Can you disclose? It was, so the total EAP was 160. The discretionary amount was close to maybe $70, if not more, per unit. I would have to double check. But it was a significant amount, or it was possibly, yes, it was about $70 per unit. When will the EAP application portal be open? Again, we have indicated that it would be open by August 22. We're hoping to have it open before that. So once the rate is declared, then the portal will be open. Will EAPs be paid at age 22 years and above for students who started their program of study late? Yes. So the age at which the EAP is being paid, even if you have not yet finished, so if you start getting your EAPs at 21, let us say, or 20, let us say you deferred your first EAP for a year, then you may run beyond 22 to get it. If you deferred your first EAP for 2 years, then you would run beyond 22 in terms of completing your EAP. So yes.
It's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible, bearing in mind the forfeiture period, yes.
Is there an age limit to start saving for a child? Yes, the child would have to be under the age of 14 to sign up for the heritage plan. When will the rate be declared? The rate will be declared in August. As soon as the rate is declared, then we'll open the portal. So had said earlier, there's a poll on screen. I had said earlier that we have to ensure that we have all of the interest accrued, all of the values accrued as of July before we can declare what the surplus is and what the EAP rate is. My youngest son will be receiving his first EAP payout this year. My oldest son did not receive any EAP payments from his contract. They were rolled up into my youngest son's contract. Do I need to provide any additional information from the normal requirement in order to receive the EAP payment that would have been transferred to my youngest son? Okay, so understandably, you would have, in this instance, substituted the EAP from the oldest child to the youngest child. Once that is on file, then we do not need to There's no additional
Right.
information that you would have because that would have been provided already. The only thing that you need to ensure that you're doing is that the agreement number is there for both plans. All right. Will 2 checks, wire transfers, be remitted to reflect the 2 separate contracts? Yes, it will. If you want 1 wire transfer, you would have to indicate that. You would also have to ensure that the application for both applications are done at the same time, and just have to ask us to do 1 wire transfer so you are not charged the sum of 2. And 3, would the EAP portion from my eldest son's contract be invested as normal in the plan for all the time it was not drawn down on? EAP
No,
portion,
there's
meaning
no
the interest.
investment.
There's no interest
Yeah, so
because once we pull
investment
out.
is done.
Go ahead, Marlene.
I was saying that there's no investment beyond the maturity. So the funds are invested during the contribution period. At maturity, your savings less fees are returned, and thereafter it's the EAPs that are paid. So the funds are not invested. The EAPs are set. The rate is determined each year, as Tricia said. And once that rate is determined for that, your cohort, your child, then that EAP is set and waiting for them. Remember, if they don't apply in the year that they're eligible, it's deferred. And if you come back and apply, if you take that 1-year deferral, when you come back in the following year to apply, that amount is set aside waiting to be paid. Okay?
What if my child started university degree in June? Your child must be enrolled. We need proof that the child is actually enrolled for the fall semester, fall 2025. All right, so if he started in June, then you just need to have the confirmation that he is still enrolled for fall 2025.
What I always say to that, Tricia, is current enrollment. The child must be currently enrolled at the time of the application.
Right. When in August can we submit the AP request? My daughter attends college in the US and their semester starts in August. When in August can we submit the AP request? So the portal will be open by the 22nd of August and you will be able to do the EAP application there. Do I have to redo it? I had already printed. I had done it already, print the form and sent it in. If it is that you had completed the POR and sent it in, I'm hoping you would have it in your email. And so when the application portal is open, you will be required to just go on and just upload the form that you would have emailed to us. All right. So just search for it in your email and download it so that you can actually open the portal go on the portal when it's open and do the application. So yes. At what age is the beneficiary no longer eligible? I'm not sure I understand that question.
That's eligible for EAPs. You just have to as a guide, what you have to look at, subscriber, is the year your plan mature, your beneficiary becomes eligible for their first EAP in the following year. As Tricia explained, you have 2 years to defer that first EAP payment. So if you defer that for the first 2 years, you didn't apply for an EAP, and that those 2 years deferral have been fulfilled, that EAP, if not applied for in the following year, is forfeited. So you can use that as a guide. The second EAP can only be held, postponed, deferred for 1 year. And likewise, your third EAP can only be deferred for 1 year. So you may use that as a guide to say, am I eligible? As best as we can, we will be sending out reminder notices to say that you have not applied. Please apply by the deadline after which your EAP will be forfeited.
Thanks, Marlene. All right. Is there a blackout period for when to submit the EAPs? If my child fast-tracked his course of study, what guarantee is there that he or she will receive all EAPs? So Marlene would have said, once the child has completed 3 years of post-secondary studies, then he or she will get the 3 EAPs. All right. If I started college in 2022 and haven't yet applied for the EAP, the previous years are forfeited. So 2022 is when doesn't matter when you started college. What matters is when the plan matured. If your plan matured 2022, you would have been eligible for your first EAP in 2023. You didn't go to school in 2023, you may have deferred that first EAP. So then defer it to 2024. Child still didn't go to school in 2024, so it would have been deferred for 2024. It means that you must apply for 2025 to eligible for that first EAP. If you don't apply from 2025 this year, then that first EAP will be forfeited. All right. So again, your plan matured 2022. You become eligible for your first EAP in 2023. You can defer from 2023 to 2024. You can defer a second time from 2024 to 2025. If at the end of the 2025 season, so come January 2026, that child has not applied for the first EAP, then that first EAP becomes forfeited. I start school on August 18th. Can exemptions be made to process my registration sooner? So once we have declared the rate, so remember what I said in the presentation was the portal will be open by the 22nd. We are working to have it open sooner. As soon as it is open, then we will submit. We will let you know that it's open so you can actually go on and apply. And we have said that we will start payments first week of September. That's what we are committing to. But of course, if we see where there is any available resources for us to start sooner, then certainly we will do just that. All right. I heard it mentioned by the CEO that the intention of this plan is more the return of principal. I have 2 plans. When I signed up for these 20 years ago, I was told that based on the performance of the fund, the expectation we would receive return of principal minus the front end charges and almost a similar amount of the maturity when you add 3 years of scholarship. Last year, the first plan matured, and to my despair, I am being told the return over 3 years is less than 40%. This does not sit well with me. I'm considering, as a result, discontinuing the other plan that has not yet matured. Is this poor return I can see going forward? Richard, would you love to take that question for me?
Sure. So the question is, if actually the statement was that if it's going to be 40% over, if the 40% was a return over what period?
40% was the return that they would have got on their return over the 20-year period.
Over the 20
or
year.
the 18-year.
Pardon me, yeah, man, absolutely. So that is probably accurate. So remember what we have said is that, we inherited this plan October 2022. We have employed our strategies, which we think are the best for the plan, given the structure of the plan. So a lot of what would have happened from before, we can't take responsibility for. So if anybody were to say that, I would definitely understand. But my response would always be that this plan is extremely conservative. I can't emphasize that anymore. What I can tell you is that, based on the trust deed and the investment policy, for example, more than 50% of the portfolio has to be in government of the US government bonds or Canadian bonds. That should give an actual perspective of what we can actually do. And everybody knows that there's an inverse relationship, right? So in other words, the higher the risk, no, sorry, oh Lord, not inverse, but I'm saying that, the greater the return is, there's more risk. And there, in this case, we're 50% of your portfolio should be in low risk securities, the returns are actually going to be pretty low. So what we've had to do is to diversify more to improve the type of returns that we can get. And over time, you're going to see where the returns will be better and we can afford to pay more EAPs. So it's really a function of what the historical performance has been. So over time, we'll be able to increase gradually the EAP rate. So we can improve on that 40% over that period. We do agree that the rate is pretty low over the period, but again, it's because of how conservative it is. And again, the structure of the plan is to make sure that at the end of the day, every single person firstly can get back their principal, and then we'll get a return which is commensurate with the structure of the plan, right? We are looking at different changes. I can't speak too much about it, but I'm hoping that with those changes, it will definitely afford us a lot more flexibility so we can do a lot more with the plan and the performance.
Thanks, Richard. My son did not get all his EAP because he did not complete his studies in Jamaica. He completed his studies in Canada, and I did not know he could apply for it there. He graduated 2023. 2023. Okay. And that's unfortunate because then the final EAP based on the timeline that one would have been forfeited. But you can just reach out to us so we can just get the specifics of your case to see when it is that he would have accessed the last one to see if there is any room. All right, for still giving you the last EAP, given that he would have graduated. I just graduated on May 4th. I was in a 2-year program. This would be my second year to collect my EAP. Can I provide my transcripts, copy of my, so absolutely. And that would give you your second EAP. Can the EAP be less than what it was in the previous year? Yes, it can. However, we are working to ensure that that doesn't happen. Richard and Aisha, they are working very hard in terms of trying to maximize the return so that we can get the EAPs back up closer to what it would have been 20 years ago and 15 years ago.
Just to add to that, Trisha, quickly,
go ahead, Marlene.
Just to add to that, to say that this is why the EAPs are determined in each year. We can't predict the fund performance. We can't predict what the returns are going to be. As Richard mentioned, they do their utmost best to get us the maximum returns. However, it's not predictable. And past performance neither is that indicative of what will be paid in the future. At all times, we do our very best to ensure that we're investing prudently to maximize the returns. But it's not to say that we can predict what the rates will be at the point of sale when the plan is being presented. Your sales reps would have said to you, this is an illustration of what you could get back. It's not set in stone. It's not a contract. It's an illustration based on the current plan's performance. What it is or what it will be 18 years down the road when your plan is now maturing. No one can say that, but we do our utmost best. Our objective is to maximize returns for our subscriber. And I just wanted to add quickly when there was a comment about the returns over the life of the plan to this subscriber who has 3 plans. I like to bring up the absolute wonderful feature of the plan at this point. You're in this plan where if as a parent you become sick, you become disabled, or you die prematurely, you did not get a chance to complete your contribution schedule. As a parent, grandparent, or legal guardian, your child would still benefit from the returns of the plan as if you had completed your plan schedule. So you started the plan, your baby was newborn, you had 207 months to complete your contribution schedule. You made 25 contributions, and God forbid you passed. Your beneficiary would have benefited from the full scholarships as if you had paid into that plan. So I like to highlight that feature and would suggest that you take that into consideration when looking at the returns. Again, this feature of the plan comes at no additional cost. It's built into the contributions you're already making. Okay? So please bear that in mind when you speak to your friends and relatives as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Pauline. My daughter has already finished college here in the UK as she started at 16. Can I use the results for her first EAP? Yes, you may. Reminder to Molly, can correct me here. If the program was 3 years long, then she would still be eligible to get the 3 EAPs. All right, so you just need to confirm with us, provide confirmation that the program was at least 3 years long so that she can get the 3 EAPs. If it is that you would have, or the plan, or so if your child was in an accelerated program and did only 2 years worth of college, then he or she would only be eligible for 2 years worth of EAPs. But once it's 3 years and above, then the 3 years EAP will be paid. Not sure if we still need to go over transferring the EAPs. That one was asked earlier. Notwithstanding, so if it is that your child, or you would have opted for the scholarship option at maturity, and for some reason, having taken a gap year, your child decides not to go to school, he or she can, or you can actually transfer the EAPs from that child to another child. That the other child must be under 22 as well. So that means that you would not have forfeited. So the transfer request needs to come in by the end of the second year of deferral for that to be granted. All right. Once you have forfeited the EAP, cannot be transferred to another beneficiary. Okay. We are aware that schools actually, many schools do start in August, so we are really trying to push for the payments to start. The prospectus actually does say the payments are for September. However, we're trying to see how best we can bring the payments up. Once we declare the rate, again, we're going to work to see how quickly we can start paying the proceeds out. So just have your information on hand. So as soon as the portal is open, you can be in one of the first batches that is submitted. And then we will actually do the application and do the approvals as quickly as is possible, first in, first out. All right, there were quite a few questions in the chat. If there is anybody who has a question in the chat that hasn't been answered, please type it in the Q&A. Just a reminder that we're asking you to use the Q&As and not the chat so that we can manage, monitor, and respond to each of the questions specifically. All right. Wire fees are maybe anywhere between $16 to $40 per wire. So you'd have to check with your bank to see what the wire charges are. If it is that you want to do a wire, so to be on the safe side, just check to see what the wire charges are from your receiving bank end. To send to a local bank, wire charges in Jamaica, I think is $30 from the sending bank. Don't know what the charge is for the receiving bank. So just bear those things in mind so you can actually do the right thing in terms of whether you can afford a wire or you need to do a check. So proof of registration, remember, just to reiterate for the persons who are still on, proof of address, it is either the proof of address form that is on the website. So if you go to heritageintl.plan.com, go to resources, you will see the proof of address there as one of the documents that you can download. So that is a form that is signed by the school as well as the beneficiary. Or the alternative method is to have a screenshot, a picture, a grab of the student's online portal. The portal needs to clearly state that the child is registered for fall 2025, needs to have his or her name, needs to have the name of the school. It needs to actually show the URL so that we can confirm that the URL is actually real URL, the logo of the school, the name of the school, the program. So you can do a screen grab if all of that is available on the students portal, or alternative to those two things is the statement of account. So if you have a statement of accounts that shows student's name, amount paid, amount outstanding, that is also accessible. All right. All right. You don't hear anything about the plan until maturity. And I understand exactly where you are coming from. 18 years ago, at the point of sale, you were told you would save towards the child. We'll give you a scholarship for the other 3 years. They perform about 50% somewhere along the lines this change, and then you weren't informed. All right, so I do take that point for sure. What we also have to be mindful of is every year your statement of account is prepared, it's printed. And so when you download the statement of accounts, you would have seen over the years a change in the projected EAPs. So the change in the projections would have indicated, because the EAPs that were in the statements of accounts were the average of the sum of the last 3 years that were paid, then you would have seen a reduction in the prospective EAPs to be paid. So yes, I understand that, just in terms of maybe general communication, having meetings, whatever it is, the statements of accounts are there. I think probably KFF also used to send out fact sheets. Molly, you can let me know if that is the case, if that is the case. But they would have sent little things that would have allowed you to look to see that the return that was promised 18 years ago is not the return that you are likely to get. And so we actually do understand where you're coming from. So what we are trying to do is work within the confines of the regulations and the rules of the plan to see how best we can manipulate investments to improve the return so that we can try and increase the EAP rate, right? I've had plans for my 2 children long prior to proven acquiring the fund, so I know exactly what it is that you are speaking about. And so it's just something that we're mindful of, and we're working to see how best we can pivot. All right. The information that is required from the school filling out the registration form, that's it. The school filling out the application form, as well as the banking information. You need a copy of the person who is completing the application online, whether it's you or the beneficiary. A copy of that ID is required to be uploaded. All right. The unit is calculated. How is the unit calculated? So the unit is calculated at the point that the plan was purchased, based on the age of the child and based on the amount of money that you indicated that you would have been willing or able to pay. So a child age, if you took out a plan for a newborn and you were willing to pay $60 would have given you 10 units, because it's $6 per unit for a newborn. Child who is per month. A child who is 1 year old, the cost is $6.7 per unit per month for a child who is 1 year old, and it goes up. So it depends on the age of the child at the point that you took the plan out, and the amount of money that you would have been willing to pay, or the amount of money that you would have indicated that you were able to pay. All right. The POA is only proof of address. Just point to note, proof of address is only required if it is that you're making a change to your address that is on file. That's the only time we require proof of address. Otherwise, we don't require proof of address. If the address is the same, No proof of address is required. What is required for every single application is a proof of registration. Proof of registration from the school indicating that the child is registered for fall 2025 and beyond. An enrollment letter would be accepted. So the enrollment letter means that they're confirming that the child is enrolled versus an acceptance letter, which is just simply saying, okay, you have been accepted to college. So acceptance letters are not sufficient, but enrollment letters confirming that the child has been enrolled in the school will be accepted. All right.
Here's a question here. What if my plan matured last year and my child has 1 year left in university? We're going to impress upon you to apply for the first EAP as soon as the portal is open and apply for the next 2 in the following 2 years with proof of their completion, the transcripts or the degree, so the copy of the degree or diploma. So apply as soon as the portal is open for the first one and the next 2 in the 2 subsequent years.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have multiple plans for a child, so in some instances, a child has a plan by the mother, father, or grandparents. If you have multiple plans for the same child, please ensure that you apply for each plan. The dashboard will take you to apply for each plan. You can apply for the same, provide the same proof of registration, same ID. You're applying for 2 different plans in the same year, which is perfectly fine. If the child has 3 plans, you can apply for the 3 plans in the same year. All right. So doesn't matter, just ensure that you put the correct information and ensure that you have applied individually, just affixed the proof of registration to each plan on the dashboard. Would a status letter suffice as proof of registration? The status letter would have to clearly indicate that the child is registered, has the child's name, has the fact that the child is registered for fall 2025, when the child is expected to finish, has the correct, it's on a letterhead and is signed by the school. All right. The unit calculation. Narissa, I'm gonna encourage you to probably reach out to us here or reach out to your rep. But the units are calculated based on the age of the child at the point that you are buying the plan, as well as the amount of money that you are willing to pay. If you can pay $100 per month, for argument's sake, and you say to us, I have $100 to give you US per month, my child is a newborn, how many units can I get? You would simply divide 100 by the cost per unit, and the cost per unit for a newborn is $6 per unit. So that 100 divided by 6 would tell you how many units you can purchase. If you can pay $60 and it's a newborn, it will be 60 divided by 6. That would tell you that you can purchase 10 units. If you can pay $100 and the child is age 10, it's significantly more the older the child gets. So a child who is age 10, that
The
would
unit
actually
rate
cost
is
you, the unit rate is $20.
$33.80 per unit.
Age 10, correct. So that is
33.80.
how you determine the units.
So
All
the
right.
older the child, the more expensive the contributions will be. And this is why we urge parents to start as soon as the baby is born. There's no better time to start than as soon as the baby is born. If you're offering your friends and relatives, just tell them the sooner, the better.
If your plan matured 2021 and he has been in university, would he still be able to claim an EAP? He would have forfeited EAP 1 for sure, because the EAP 1 would have been due 2022. He would have deferred for the first time to 2023, for the second time to 2024. at the end of the 2024 season, which would have closed in January, February of this year, did not apply, then that EAP would have been forfeited.
It's interesting. We'd love to hear why they did not apply. If the child is in school, you've received your maturity proceeds. We've been having maturity webinar and EAP webinar since 2020, I believe, or 2021, when COVID sets in. We've been having webinars and informing our customers what to do, how to apply, how to get the maximum benefits out of your plan. So this is interesting. It would be interesting to understand why you didn't apply. You can reach out and we'd be more than happy to look at your case and see what, if anything, can be done depending on your extenuating circumstances.
But you would still be eligible for EAPs 2 and 3. So you could apply for EAP 2 and 3 now, even without looking at anything else. All right. If you are supplying the proof of registration via the university portal site, do you upload the proof of registration form 2? No, you do not. So it's 1. So we're just giving you options for what you can approve, what you can upload as proof of registration. Marcia, what was your question? Sorry. If your plan matured last year, right? Your child started university last year, you would not have been able to apply unless the child completed a full 2 years of CAPE. So if your child had completed 2 years of CAPE prior to last July when the plan matured, then you would have been eligible to apply for your first EAP last year. Even though your child started university last year, if it is that they didn't complete 2 years of CAPE or any other first year post secondary studies, then you would not have been eligible to apply for your first EAP until this year. Remember, by the prospectus, you become eligible for your first EAP 1 year after completing your first year of post-secondary studies. Okay? What's the cost per unit for a 12-year-old child? That is paid monthly. The cost would be $64.70 per unit. Okay, Marcia, your question is the discretionary amount referenced an additional amount to the figure of $160 per unit that was told okay, no, the discretionary amount is what would have brought the scholarship rate up to $160 per unit. When you calculate what the EAP rate is, it includes the discretionary top-up. So it would have worked out to be a smaller figure, then we pump some surplus in and we get it up to $160 per unit. All right. If your plan matured 2 years ago, that is 2023, sorry, you are still eligible to receive the first EAP. So please go ahead and do the application. You would not have forfeited the first EAP as yet. All right. Options available as proof of registration. I think this is the last time I'm going to repeat. The recording is actually going to be sent as well, so you can look out for that. Proof of registration form, which is online via the website, which is the Heritage INTL Plan website. Go to resources. You can download the form, have it completed, the school will stamp and sign. That's the first option. Statement of accounts showing your payment that is outstanding for the period upcoming or payment that was made for fall 2025. is also accepted. Screenshot of the child's online portal, sorry, that clearly shows the URL, shows that the child is registered for fall 2025, shows the course outline, that is also accepted with the name of the school, university logo, and all of that. If you are able to get a status letter that indicates that the child is registered for fall 2025, the child is expected to complete the program whenever, and it's on the school's letterhead, duly signed, stamped where necessary, that is also accepted. All right. If you're having an issue trying to access the members dashboard, can you just raise a ticket, please? There is a section on the dashboard that allows you to log a ticket. So you can just log a ticket, or you can reach out to us via email at customercare@heritageINTLplan.com. Denny, can you just drop that email address in the chat for me, please, so everybody can have access? It's customercare@heritageINTLplan.com. So yes, if you have 8 units based on the EAP value of 160 last year, let us say it's 160 again this year, the total EAP for this year, which is only for this year, is 1,280. Next year, it will be a different value. All right. Okay. I think there was a question that I had glimpsed. I had wanted to answer it. If it is that you would have missed payments, monthly payments, you can actually just reach out to us, reach out to your sales rep. If you're having any issues, you can reach out to your sales rep so we can make the necessary adjustments so that you can actually bring your plan up to date. Okay? If it is that at maturity, you have, well, this year was more than six or more contributions outstanding, you won't be eligible to mature on scholarship option. You will just get your principal less fees back. And so we just encourage you to look at the dashboard, see the status of your plan, reach out to us at customercare@heritageINTLplan.com, or you can reach out to your sales rep if it is that you are having any issues and you want any clarity as it relates to the status of your plan. All right. Okay. I think that is a wrap for us. Contact numbers as well are 946-4073. So that's 876-946-4073. 876-946-4074, 876-946-4075, 876-946-4076. All right, so those are the 4 straight lines that you can use to contact us. 876-946-4073 to 76.
The 6.
Okay. All right, so we just want to use this opportunity to just thank you again for attending the webinar. Reach out to us or your sales rep if it is that you have any questions that may not have been answered tonight. And we will see how best we can assist you. All right. The numbers are in the chat. 946-4073 to 6. Okay. Have a good evening, everybody, and we will see you again. You'll hear from us when the online dashboard is open so that you can do your applications. Remember, we're not doing any manual applications this year. Applications must be submitted via the dashboard. Please, please, please. It helps us to be as efficient. It helps us to get the payments out more quickly. So we just encourage you to do your proof of registration, ensure your IDs are valid, ensure if it is that you need to do a proof of address, it's valid. Ensure you're putting the correct banking information in terms of the bank account name, the bank account number, the branch, and all of those things. All right. And then you just look out for the emails from us saying to you, the EAP rate has been declared. The EAP rate is XYZ. Please go on and do your applications. The sooner we are able to do that, and the sooner you actually do your applications, it is the sooner you will start getting your funds. Somebody had actually asked about the turnaround time, usually within 2 weeks of the application being submitted and approved, then you will get the funds. Okay, you'll get an email when the funds have been disbursed. You'll get an email when your application has been approved, and so you can just look out for those bits of communication from us. But thanks for attending. Thanks for your questions. Any final words from you, Richard? Marlene?
No, it's been a good presentation. The reception has been very good from the subscribers. So it's very good to get that type of feedback. And again, if there's any other feedback that you do have for us, please feel free to send an email to us. We want to hear from you as much as we can. So if there's any information, any feedback that you want, as always, we're willing to hear. You can send the email to the email address that's in the group. That's it from me. So
just want to say thank you too, just to add to what Richard said, and just to say that the success of this business depends largely on word of mouth. So if you can tell your friends, share your experience and what this plan has done for you and your families with your friends and relatives, we would greatly appreciate it. So thank you. Nothing more from me.
all right.
All right, have a good evening.
Have a good evening.
Have a good night, everyone. Take care. Bye. See you next year, same time.